Everyone. Appreciate everybody being here and appreciate Councilman Squilla for joining us this morning, and looking forward to getting to know you and chatting a little bit. So if you could just please tell us about yourself, your path to council, the things that you're primarily focused on right now, and yeah, please.
Thanks, Jake, and thanks, Matt, for inviting me. My name is Mark Squilla. I'm the first district council person in Philadelphia here. My area represents mainly east of Broad Street from South Philadelphia up through Center City to Spring Garden Street. And then I go down toward the river up north of Spring Garden, so includes Chinatown, north of Spring Garden around 4th Street up until Girard Avenue, which includes Northern Liberties. Then I cut across closer to the river there, includes a section of Fishtown, Port Richmond, and Kensington areas up until Allegheny Avenue is the new boundaries for me. My background's in computer science, was a programmer for 25 years, got involved in local politics through mainly maintaining a open space, a park in the community. Got active trying to redo the park, met with the council person, and then became a committee person and just went from there. It was never an intent to be in political office. That I have a very diverse district, but a lot of different needs from, Center City and other areas, from high income levels to very, very low incomes in Kensington and South Philadelphia, big immigrant populations. So it's different needs in different areas, but it's a very rewarding district, and it's a lot of fun to be able to help people mitigate all the concerns and issues that we have here in the city. Sometimes it's a challenge. Most of the calls we get are always not good ones. They're always a problem, and we have to try to solve them. But trying to work with the business community and the residential community, and trying to keep all sides afloat, especially during this pandemic and some of the troubling times that we have. And so, we try to meet with as many people as possible. We try to get input from everyone, from residents to businesses to property owners to landlords, no matter who it is. Not that we agree all the time, but we always keep an open line of communication and dialogue so that all sides feel like they're heard and part of the process. So that's basically just a short synopsis of me, but happy to work with you and answer questions and see what's on your mind.
Thank you. What committees do you sit on or chair? Are you active with it at council?
I'm now chair of the Commerce and Economic Development Committee and L&I. Labor.
Okay.
I'm on a lot of other committees too, but they're the two I chair.
Okay. So coming back to the city, how do we get people back into the city? How do we, what can City Hall do to get business?
I can give you my take, and it might not be something that all members of the council or administration agree with, but there's two things we have to do. One is lead by example. I think we as council need to get back in session with in-person session with council members being in there, showing that it's okay to come into your office. I think it's important to lead and show people that if we can do it as council, could come in and go get back to business, we also can expect others to do that. We can't say do one thing and do the opposite. And that's where we're at right now. The other issue is how we deal with crime and issues in the city of Philadelphia, quality of life issues. There are major, major concerns that the public have. I go to community meetings now, whether they're virtual or in person, and the number one issue that comes up is that people do not feel safe. And that is a major deterrent to getting people back to work, having business grow, and even growing our business, or if we want to try to grow our tax base. We have certain policies that are in place that are set by the administration. Council could introduce legislation and laws, but if they're chosen not to be enforced, or we're not able to work together to come up with solutions, then these issues that we're having as far as quality of life issues and major crime issues in the city is a big deterrent. I recently had conversations with the managing director's office, the police commissioner, the courts, Judge Dugan, Municipal Court, DA Krasner, Defenders Association, and others, where trying to find common interest where we could all be on the same ground. It was very contentious. People speak their mind, which is good, and not everybody agrees. But I think what we all need to agree on is what can we do as a whole to try to start turning the tide on these quality of life and criminal issues that we're having in the city of Philadelphia. And what we came up with, at least what I came up with along with Councilmember Sanchez, was a drug court, which is called AMP court. Drug court is something where if you have illegal use, have people illegally using substances, I represent Kensington, so this was a big issue. You're able to bring those people in, and then through AMP, through drug court, be able to then offer them an opportunity for treatment. If they get an opportunity for treatment and they take it, then their charges of illegal drug use would be dropped, and they could hopefully go on to become, sober or become able to handle medical assistant treatment or whatever is necessary to get them back on the straight and narrow. DA Krasner initially was opposed to that because of fees and fines associated with it. So we had asked the municipal court to get a Supreme Court ruling to see if we could waive fees and fines on that. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court came back and said we couldn't. So we asked the administration if we could include it in the budget for people who completed their program, that the city would cover the fees and fines. And they're very minimal, $50, $75. They're not big fees and fines. So the administration has agreed to that. Now so we're hoping in June that this court will be up and running. Municipal court has it already has it in place. It's ready to go. The DA is willing to participate. They're asking for a couple more dollars in their budget. The Defenders Association also is supportive of it. So this was one thing we had a common interest, I think, that we could start moving the ball forward, where we could address the issues of people on the street. How do we help them help themselves, and also in turn help the people who live in those communities? Our policies that are in place right now sort of help to exacerbate the problem. We went and we gauged them, and we spend a lot of money cleaning up after them. But we said, if you don't want help, you could just stay there and continue doing what you're doing. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And we do it over and over again. We spend millions of dollars of cleaning up in Kensington. You go there the next day, it looks like you didn't do a thing. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. If you're not addressing the problem, you're not going to be able to move the needle forward to have those people feel safe in those communities. So that's just one thing. Once we get this up and running in the summer, which I believe we will, because we're pushing for those budgets to happen. And it wasn't easy. It took over a year to do this, just to get everybody on the same page. But then it's, we used to have community court years ago. Community court is for minor offenses, retail theft, urinating in public, underage drinking, simple things. Right now, we don't charge them. We don't do anything. We want to then bring those charges back, get them into court where they could then go and do community service. Usually community service is done in a community where they committed the offense. And therefore, to us, it's a win-win program. Plus, we could clear out a lot of the minor cases we have in our court system that has a major backlog that hurts with some of our major crimes, because we have all these other cases in the way. Everybody seems to be supportive of that. So that's my next effort, to get everybody on board to see how we could get the resources to get that court up and running. And I think people will start to see the difference in addressing those issues and getting some of these folks off the street. And the other thing is how we engage people who are on the street that are having concerns. The city has a policy with encampments and tents, but they don't enforce it. We need to enforce it. We need to make sure that everybody's on the same page, whether it's outreach, whether it's the police, and whether it's homeless services. We have places for them to go, whether it's shelters, temporary housing, more permanent housing. But the main thing is we can't get to that level without getting into treatment. We need to address the problem, which is either rehab or medical assistant treatment, and get them the help they need, or reconnect them to where they came from or to their family, to try to help these folks get off the street. These are major concerns of mine, and been fighting with how our city's been dealing with this for quite some time, because we set the policy. We put things in place on how we deal with these things, knowing that, all right, we tried it. It didn't work. That's okay. Try something different. The hard part is to get us to try something different. And I think we're starting to get there. It's still going to be a challenge. The other issue is hiring more police officers. We need to get more police on the street. Councilmember Parker has put a plan, and I support it wholeheartedly, of getting police officers, but looking at the police officers mainly as beat cops and bike cops. We have a pilot in Old City District that seems to be working very well. Al Macchione is the beat cop officer. He goes into every store, says hello to them every day, asks them what their concerns are. He talks to people on the street. Build that rapport with police and build that trust between the police and the community, so that there is an issue, they call his cell phone right away, they deal with it, and we could stop things from happening. These are the directions I think we need to go into to really set the record straight and to let people know we're trying something to get business back into the city of Philadelphia, and then to get that confidence back, because we have low morale for police, low morale from our residents and visitors and businesses. And how do we get that together? We have to build it. It's going to take time. It didn't take it overnight to get to where we are today, but these are just a couple of the things I think we could do to start moving the needle forward and getting that positive feeling back for the city.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Segueing into, businesses calling Philadelphia home and taxes, we have the highest wage tax, and this directly correlates to businesses calling Philly home. Do we need substantive change to our tax system? Is there more that we can be doing?
I think there was a goal to reduce the business taxes over time, and we supported that. I think we need to continue going in that direction. I actually think the biggest, nobody's really talking about this, but the biggest concern you're going to see is really our real estate tax. And the rate is not going to go up, but the assessments are going to go up. And nobody's talking about that yet, because we were supposed to have assessments by March 31st. It's actually, and they were supposed to be approved by the state. We don't have them yet. To me, that's a problem, because that just tells me that the city's projecting a 4.5% increase overall, but we're going to have some areas and some communities to get hit with 40-50% increases in their real estate tax because of their assessment going up. How do we address that issue? And whether it's a homeowner or whether it's a landlord or a business, a lot of these businesses have triple net leases. That automatically goes back into you paying your taxes. OPA was supposed to come up with they have a new canvas system that was supposed to make it more accurate in actual value of a property, but we've seen major flaws in the system, at least to date. We don't have the new information yet, but I believe that's going to be a challenge to a lot of folks when they see that. And it's not a tax increase. You hear the mayor say we don't have any tax increases, but it's a backdoor way of increasing revenue because your assessments are going up so high. And we have to look as council, we have to look at what safeguards we could put in place. I tried to do a max of increasing maximum of 3% a year. You can't go over that. The administration opposed it and got some other council members to oppose that, saying it's illegal. But we have to come up with something so that we could have predictions of where we're going to be in the future. When you have a business, you can't just look what it is now. You want to know what it's going to be 5 years from now, and how your business has to grow in order to sustain yourself. So, these are big challenges, I think, that aren't even being spoken about yet, but you're going to see that. And most people, when they get a notice in the mail that says, your assessment is going up, they just put it in the drawer. They don't realize that correlates to their tax bill, because it doesn't tell you what your tax bill is. And most people have a mortgage or they pay rent. So you don't know it. Your mortgage company pays it. Then they tell you your mortgage payment goes up.
Do you have any inside scoop?
I've been asking since the end of March. We're here in May, beginning in May, we'll have something. We have a hearing for OPA May 6th. So they better have it by then, or it's going to be a problem. I already think they're in violation. And I made it known to OPA and to the administration that, we need time to look at these numbers and to be able to go over it. Now, maybe what they did is they saw their numbers and realized how high they were. Maybe they're going back and fixing them before they give them to us. I'm making that up because I don't know for sure, but I don't know why we don't have them.
Are there discussions or anything? I mean, like expanding loop or other
Well, I think
policy
Homestead,
decisions you guys can do to protect people?
yeah, well, I mean, loop is still in effect. The problem with loop is you have to increase by 300%. That's a large, we don't want people to increase by that much. First of all, it was really from the old assessment to the new assessment, and people did increase that much. But the homestead is something where if you are a private homeowner, you get a benefit of $45,000 homestead. We have a bill in to make it 50,000 already. We're waiting to see if you only could go 50% of the median value of all properties. So if the city properties are worth 110,000, you only could go 55,000 as a max for homestead. So we have to see what the whole city value will be, and then we'll be able to adjust it that way. But that's only for homeowners, right? Which is good. We need to protect the homeowners. It doesn't protect the businesses because you don't live there. So, those properties will have to eat it. And then if you're renting those properties out, that gets passed along to the tenants. And so now when we talk about affordable rentals, how do you increase affordable rentals when you're increasing the value of that property? And so now the rent goes up per month, and then it makes it
gets passed through to the tenant, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
So speaking of that, and you recently introduced legislation that would mandate sprinklers in certain residential structures, including retrofitting existing properties. What was the genesis of this? What exactly is it mandating? Who's advocating for it? What do you?
This actually came from L&I. It was L&I and the fire department after the 3rd and Chestnut fire. We actually did this 2 years ago for historic structures. It passed. It's in effect today. This is an expansion of that. This now does all high-rise buildings, which are 75 feet or above. We're in conversations with L&I, some of the property owners, condo owners, of how we can work on this to make it both safe and not astronomically expensive. All these buildings already in 2000, I think it was 8 or 9, they already have to bring water. They had to go from a dry standpipe to a wet standpipe. So all these buildings that are high rises already have to make those connections of water onto every floor. So we're talking with the building owners, and some of the questions and concerns that came from that were individual properties that are a part of these and apartments and/or condos. Could it be something where the hallways and egress of these facilities would be sprinklered, but the indoor actual apartments would be hardwired? This was a suggestion by L&I. But we're not there yet. The bill is still waiting for a committee hearing. We're not rushing it. We're still going to have these conversations with a lot of folks to determine the best way to move forward and what amendments could possibly be put in to make it both safe but also bearable, and how much time would it need to be able to do that. It was 6 years was the bill to allow the dry standpipe to wet standpipe when that was introduced. So it would be something like that also with this. And so we're going to continue those conversations. We're not going to rush that. And, I think that over time we'll be able to come up with something that's amenable to all. Not everybody probably will be happy again at the end, but I think it's something that's worth having a longer conversation on.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the financial implications of retrofitting some of these older buildings is,
Yeah, most of them, I mean, we talked to the buildings, a lot of them that could just do halls and already have the water to those services. It's really not, the numbers that they were giving us when we met with them initially was astronomical. And then when we came back with our numbers, they sort of agreed and said, well, yeah, but we had our numbers for doing every individual unit and all this stuff. So I think we get to a good place. I understand we're not out here because, again, once we do that and we put that requirement onto the property owner, that's going to increase the rents in those buildings too, because they're going to get their money back for that.
going to get
So
passed. Yeah.
we understand that, and so we're going to continue working with them on this potential legislation.
Residential rentals have been a big focus of council, affordable housing and everything, including rent control. Do you have a position on rent control?
I mean, rent control sounds good in terminology where you could people, it's sort of almost like what we talked about having tax increase control, right? Where you only could go up 3% a year, so people could judge how much increase will be from year to year maximum. But there are challenges to it. There's a lot of other municipalities that have it. We don't really see the benefits that people talk about in those municipalities that have rent control. So again, I think that'll be constantly spoken about. I think there's a group of council members that would bring that up, and it's really something hard to vote against as an individual council member. I'm just being honest with you. I know that's not a position that you would like us to take, but it's hard to vote against depending on how it is presented. But there's still a lot of questions, even internally with council. When people talk about bringing it up, we go to look at other municipalities that have it and see if the effect is what the outcome, the intent of the outcome, and it doesn't seem to be that way, at least in those municipalities. So there's a lot of challenges with it, but I haven't heard from it lately. But it doesn't. We don't. And if some council member introduces it, a lot of times they don't let us know. We find out the day it's introduced. So they'll pick a couple people who are supportive of it, work together on it, and then then put the bill in, and then we have to react to it after the fact. Like what I did with even the sprinkler bill before we introduced it, we put it out to the business community, to the BIA and some other folks, and said, contact people about it, let them know, and let's sit and discuss this as we try to meander our way through. To me, that's the best way to do it, because you could hopefully come up with better legislation from talking to both sides and trying to come up with a plan that, could still be, like I said, safe, but not be astronomically expensive for the property owner.
Are there other discussions regarding affordable housing or sort of addressing?
Well, you see, there's some bills, affordable housing, as far as new construction, as far whether to have affordable housing proposed as all new units are being built. Some council members have done some overlays in some areas where you have a percentage of properties being affordable. I like the bonus model, where if you decide to do affordable, you get either more height or more density. And this way it helps you to maybe subsidize those affordable units in your new development. And also it's a way to have mixed income living, where you don't have all 30% AMI folks all living together. You have people, mixed in the community. We saw what happened when we did a lot of our project home type based homes, where we sort of create these low income neighborhoods that are a challenge to the people living them, and growing folks out of that. So I think the best case scenario, and even when, you talk about Section 8 and vouchers, the concept was good. The problem was the follow through and how we managed that as a government. It was supposed to be you could have a house in a working class neighborhood that you could help offset subsidy for somebody to live there. It wasn't supposed to be you could have 10 houses on the same block, all being Section 8, and all having all low income people all living on that same block, because that does the same thing as a project type development. So anything that we do, it's going to be up to how we manage that process moving forward. We have, we are in conversations with some of the builders and people who do a lot of the construction in the city of Philadelphia, and they have a couple plans, and I'm working with them on how they believe affordability could work both to be profitable and also allow mixed income living to be in new developments in the city. But I think we need to do that. I think we need affordability to be part of the city's growth. There's no reason why we can't grow, but still maintain some affordability in it. We don't want to move everybody out who lived here their whole lives. So it's an important concept for me. I'm very supportive of it. And I don't think we have the right model yet, but I think we're working toward that.
Okay. How is your office operate? Like going back to COVID and going back to normal, how is your office and council operating right now? And do you see a step in the right direction there? Or, I mean,
my office is open every day. We've been open. We were only closed for 2 weeks. We actually did a hybrid where people came in 2 days a week and stayed home 3 days a week, and then we went to 3 days a week, and now we're 4 days a week, and people work home from home 1 day a week. But I always thought early on, people want, they want to talk to somebody when they have a problem. The problem today is we can't reach even some of our city departments. With everybody working from home, you can't get an answer from somebody. And we had everybody made excuses on why we can't do anything. If they would have just did the job and not explain to you why they can't do it, it would be done. Council still virtual. I mean, it has its pros and cons. I would prefer to be back in person. I think it's better to show, like I said earlier, that if council could be back working in person, then everybody else could go back working. I would even support a hybrid plan where council's all back there, and then you still allow people to access virtually those hearings. So you can have both in-person and virtual connection if people don't feel comfortable coming in. I was concerned when the city put up the last mask mandate and made it known that I believe
changed their minds.
Yeah, well, they did, thank God. I mean, I think it was because a lot of the backlash, but I mean, we should have been given recommendations. We knew our case counts were a little high, but we also knew that there was hospitalization was very low. We knew all these things, but yet we went by old criteria of how we judge things and not looking at the big picture. When we send those mixed messages out there, it's really hard. Like this Children's Hospital was saying one thing and the city saying something else. The feds took it off. They got sued, so transportation no longer had masks. Where do you wear a mask? Where you don't wear a mask? Who enforces it? You go into a restaurant, the waiter's got to tell you to put a mask on. It was too much, and added to too much confusion. And I think at this point, we know what's in front of us. We could advise people what's going on, and we have to let them decide how they want to react to that, whether they want to stay home, whether they want to wear a mask, whether they want to eat outside, whatever it is that they want to do. We need to know that many of people now have been infected with the virus or have vaccination. We have over herd immunity. Before it was 70%, then it was 80%, now it's 90%. Whatever it is, we're past it. And so we have to learn, people are still going to get sick from this virus. It's going to be around 100 years. We're going to have variants every year, and I'm sure there'll be a vaccine for these variants every year that we're going to be offered to us. And, we just have to learn to live with it like we live with the flu. But some of these policies that we set in place, and again, a lot of people think council could change the administrative policy. We have no authority over that. We have those conversations with them, and we could use our grandstanding to say something, but we can't change the administrative policy. The city of Philadelphia has a strong mayoral form of government, allows them to make some unilateral decisions, even after our budget is approved and we approve the budget. They could then move the money around and do the things that they think are necessary, and they have that authority to do that. So it's, it is a challenge at times, but I think having different branches of government is good. And, we could debate that back and forth with the administration. And that's normally what you'll hear during these budget hearings of us going back and forth on what should be funded, what shouldn't be funded. So it's always an exciting time right now. And like I said, we'll be having a budget hearing starting today at 10 o'clock.
Well, and you're with us instead of preparing for that meeting. I
Oh,
appreciate
well, we're already
your
prepared.
time. Um, in light of recent news, could you speak to councilmatic prerogative and your feelings on that?
Yes, and I believe in councilmanic prerogative. I see that as an elected official in a district that is voted on by the people. You know, they come to us for support, and we work with individual developers on each and every project. Councilmanic prerogative doesn't mean that the councilman gets to pick and choose what developments are there. The main focus of that is when a development does not fit within the zoning code. We went and remapped all our areas. We worked with the planning commission. We worked with some development people in the communities, and we went and remapped it so to allow a majority of these projects to be done by right. Now, projects by right do not need council intervention or community intervention. You go in, if it's CMX3, you know what you're allowed. We added additional bonuses. So if you want to do a green roof, you could get more density, or if you want to do affordable housing, you could get more density. And, you know, they even had a couple other bonuses in there for people to choose from. So when there is a variance of some sort, then I think, you know, you have to go to the zoning board. That zoning board allows you to bypass the zoning to allow you to build something different. Now, majority of those that come in through our office are simple, and they get approved right through the process, approved by the community, approved by us, and it goes right through. But there are a couple controversial projects that happen. And in that case, I think it's more than adequate to allow a council person to say, you know what, we're going to look at this in a way, or we're going to change zoning in certain areas or remap a certain area that will allow a development that fits within that guidelines of that community. And so when we remap an area, we'll pick it, say it's CMX3, and we say, oh, it should be CMX 2.5 because CMX 3 allows certain things that don't work within that community. I think we should have that ability to do that. And if you leave it up to certain people, what I call bureaucratic people within the department to make those decisions, they're not accountable to anybody. They don't have to answer to anybody. And so, you know, we're elected, we're the ones that get all the heat from the residents. And so we have to be accountable for that. And so I know there's some bad terminology with councilmanic prerogative, but, you know, if you do it right, it's fine. When I have properties in the land bank and they sell and the land bank approves them, everything that goes through the land bank and whatever it is gets done. You know, I'm a big supporter of gardens and open space, but everything else that goes through that land bank, they say they approve it, I approve it, and I just move on. We even did an auction with our properties about 4 or 5 years ago where we just tried to sell city properties. The city shouldn't be in a business of owning all these properties because, first of all, they're not on the tax rolls. We do not maintain them, all right, and we're not good stewards. So we should look at those properties to get them off the tax rolls as quick as possible, and then have them performing out in the public and owned by the private person. So that's my take on councilmanic prerogative. But I know that, like, we do overlays all the time, and every overlay we do, we work with planning, and there's disagreements. Planning will say, oh no, we think we should do this. Community say, oh, that'll be too much, we won't be able to handle it. So I always try to middle it, come up to a middle ground, and then get both sides on board, and then we move forward with the plan. But if we just allowed it done by bureaucrats, there would be no accountability whatsoever. And then even if you get the wrong people in those positions, you might not be able to build anything.
Right.
You know, and so it's a challenge. But the land bank was supposed to streamline a lot of our development processes, right? But it's been very difficult moving properties through the land bank. We put a lot of properties in there. There's certain guidelines they have to follow. Then there's a board that has to get approved, and then trying to then get those to settlement. They have this plan called 5149, where if you build 51% of the units affordable, 49 could be market rate to subsidize it, and therefore you get the property, you get all the lots or properties at a minimal value. We worked on 2 of them so far. 2 of them went through the whole process, but still aren't sold. And it's been almost 2 years. So it's too long to do it. We have to streamline that. There's always going to be concerns no matter who's doing it, you know, and I wish the land bank moved quicker. I wish the point of the land bank was supposed to be to streamline the efforts of selling public property. But I think we still need more work on making that a little more easier.
Especially now with our inventory issues in the real estate market. If the land bank was, I mean, now's a great time to be selling city properties.
Yeah, we would love, and you know, we have, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's an expression of interest where people go on there and they put in their expression of interest on there, but then sometimes it takes 6 months before they even would put it up for sale.
Right.
You know, and you know, and then people get tired of it, and then some people don't have the resources to wait through that process to be able
to the next, yeah.
Right, they just go on to the next thing. So it's a challenge, but it's something we need to make better, I would say.
What opportunities do you see for the city? What positives can you share with us?
Well,
yeah,
I think we have great opportunity in the city. I think we got to look at COVID and the things that happened during COVID and the problems that we have now are opportunities to know what we did wrong, know what we did right, and then capitalize on moving the city forward. We still have a great bones of a city, right? We still have a lot of properties that we could work on in the city of Philadelphia. We need to get the morale back in the city of Philadelphia. I think we're starting to do that. I think with at least with the mindset of getting police to be more engaging and having hopefully some more foot patrols on the street to start that process, to also start the process of getting people back to work. We're already getting visitors back in the city of Philadelphia. I'm on a convention center board. We're starting to see those numbers really matriculate up. Conventions are starting to come back. We've had a real downturn with conventions, but our tourist travel has been really picking up. And the weekends have been good. Our problem is really during the week. We don't see, you know, Center City at night is starting to pick back up. We're starting to see people out and about, walking around. I think people really want to get back out and really want to enjoy themselves. I think we're going to see a roaring 20s again in the next couple of years where, you know, people are back out having a great time and hopefully don't have too much fun. But I do see the opportunity in business to really grow in Philadelphia and really in the whole country, because I think people are just ready to get out and enjoy themselves.
Cool. That's pretty much all I had for you. So you know, I'll let Matt finish up here and thank you again for your time. And yeah, I'm glad we were able to do this.
Councilman, so we have a couple of questions I just want to pull out of the chat so we can get that wrapped up and you can go take care of the budget hearing that you have at 10 o'clock. But first, I just want to say to all of our members, Councilmember Squilla has been really good to GPAR in a lot of different ways. Sometimes we don't always agree, but the one thing that is always true is that his door is always open and he'll always have a conversation with us and he'll hear our side through, he as well as his staff, but usually himself. He responds to text messages and phone calls and emails. So, you know, that's a really great thing for us because one of the main things that we do with our work here as an association is have conversations with council members in city council. And sometimes it's really hard to have those conversations, to have that dialogue. And Councilman Squilla is an example of accessibility as well as a willingness to go ahead and talk with us about these issues when he knows we're probably not going to be on his side on something. He doesn't shy away. So I just want to say we appreciate your professionalism and that willingness to talk with us, even on the challenging conversations.
I do want to say one thing too, Matt, is that I do respect GPAR because they do reach out as a unified voice, which is very important. A lot of times we get some folks, you always get the one-offs here and one-offs there, and even you combine with some lobbying folks. It does make it easier to work with when there's a unified voice coming. When we get some organizations that, you know, 5 people want this, 5 people want that, they can't even get together on what their they're asking for, it makes it very difficult. You guys are very pinpoint, accurate of what you want. You know, you share your concern very vocally and make it known. So that's important. It's not always important to agree on everything that we are doing. I think it's important to make sure the message is coming direct and clear of what you're requesting. And I got to say, GPAR does that very well. So I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. So we had an interesting point mentioned in the chat, and that relates to public transportation and SEPTA. And there were some news reports about this just last night on the local news. You know, it seems like the public transit is in a bad spot. It feels like it's not being clean or doesn't feel safe. What role does council play in relation to SEPTA and funding, and how can you guys be advocates for that getting better for our residents?
Well, we do help. The city does. We don't fund SEPTA wholeheartedly, but we do give a lot of resources to SEPTA. A lot of the SEPTA challenges are the same as the city challenges. We got into a position of policies on how we deal with certain situations. Homeless services, SEPTA was trying to work with wholeheartedly, built even the Hub of Hope underground to help people who were needed shelter. But they fell into the same problem as homeless services and some of the policies where, you know, they hired a lot of ambassadors. They're spending a lot of money to deal with some of the folks on the trains, the dirt, the filth, the encampments, the tents. And they would spend money on engaging, but never had a plan on what happens if they didn't take help. And that's where we fell as a city, where SEPTA fell, because everybody was afraid to say, you know, hey, listen, we offer you help. We could give you addiction treatment, mental health services. We could give you temporary housing. But if you don't want it, you have to leave. Like it's not okay for you to stay on SEPTA. You have to get off. There's a destination. And that's what we were missing. SEPTA is starting to change that. They still keeping the ambassadors on to engage these folks, but they're now looking to hire additional officers on the trains to make sure that these people do exit at a destination and have somewhere to go. Because nothing's worse than being on a public transit and somebody smoking on there or using, you know, on there and making it just their house. And that's not what public transportation is for. And, you know, a lot of times I get called, I don't care, I'm too hard, I'm this and that. And I think I care more than they do, because I say caring isn't curing. If you're caring for somebody but allowing them to continue that behavior, you're not helping them. And that's where we are. That's where we still are right now. But that feeling is starting to change. And I've been arguing it for 2 years, because we need to help those folks, but we're not helping them by allowing them to continue that behavior. So SEPTA, we do work with them. We put complaints in there. I mean, SEPTA went on, and I was a little upset because they went on this tour telling everybody how great they were doing engaging the homeless. Well, I got on and say, yeah, you're engaging them, but what are you doing when they don't accept the help? And they said, oh, well, we let them stay there. I said, well, that's the problem. Because if you don't have a solution, then they will continue to just ride and stay on that service, and you're really not helping them. You're spending all this money to engage them, but you're not helping them. So they are starting to change it too, where they, you know, could meet with our homeless outreach, engage them, pay a warm handoff to somebody else. But if they don't want to go, you got to get off the trains, and then SEPTA's got to clean up these areas. You can't allow people just to lay on the steps, urinate everywhere. You know, representing Somerset Station up there in Kensington, you know, we had to redo, SEPTA had to redo that whole elevator shaft because the urine actually destroyed all the mechanical equipment in that elevator. So, I mean, you can't continue to allow it to happen. And I think they're catching on that the only way to do this is to offer help. But if they don't want it, we have to have them move on and to leave the system. So we have to be more diligent with it. It has to be done every day. You can't just do it once a week or once a month. It's going to be, you know, very intensive, but I think, you know, people are starting to catch on. That's what we need to do, but it's not there yet.
One more question out in the chat, and that would be going to assessment. So we talked about it earlier. A lot of people feel like there's not fairness with the assessments. I guess transparency seems like it's an issue when AVI was sold as the way to go. We thought a lot of this stuff was going to be cleaned up and that it was going to have a little bit more of a sense of predictability and folks were going to be able to understand things. It feels like we went to AVI and we're right where we were back with that previous setup that we had. So what can we do to make assessments more fair, or at least seem more fair to our residents?
Well, I think we were sold that early on, is why people voted for it. I actually voted against it, not because I didn't think AVI was a good initiative. I thought that we weren't ready for it. And I think we proved that we weren't ready for it. And so now they have this CAMA system in that's supposed to fix it. This is supposed to be the first year using this CAMA system where they will have the actual values assessments come through using this system. We'll see. I don't have faith in it. I think that, you know, our office was inundated helping people with appeals. You know, you had to appeal by October 1st. They have what they call first level review. Very rarely do you win a first level review that they do that. And people think, and this is part of the confusion, they think that's their appeal. First level review is just something you fill out and you say, you have to check this. The only time they change that is if there's a mistake. So if there's a mistake saying that you're a triplex and you're really a duplex, or your front is a rehab front and it's not a rehab front. So that's the only time they will change it in the first level review. So people think that's an appeal, and then they miss their appeal, and then they have to pay that assessment. So we've been just trying to get the word out, and that's why we've been talking about assessments all along, even though you're not even hearing it mentioned. Nobody's doing an article on it. I even called the newspaper and said, can you please do an article on this? But I guess they will at some point, maybe after they come out with the assessments. But you have to appeal the assessed value. And when it's a property that makes money, if it's an income property, they base it on actually the income that's made by that property. So you have a really good case on those assessments. And it's also supposed to be fairly, in other words, every building that is like yours should be assessed similarly. And we see that discrepancy, like you would have 5 houses on a block, all the same, and you would see gigantic changes in assessments. And that's also grounds for an appeal, because then they can't assess it that way. So I think it's going to be a challenge. I think you need to look at what your assessed values are when you get it. You should have had it by now. You don't, because they didn't mail them out yet. But I would pay attention to that, and then file the first level review if you think there's something wrong, but also file the appeal. File an appeal to the BRT. The BRT is supposed to take that appeal in and then rule on that at that time. So, you know, I'm thinking maybe, and council can do this, you'll rarely ever see it. Administration will have a heart attack, but they can actually reduce the tax rate if the assessments are way high. So if you see like a 10%, 15% assessment value, council can make it, instead of 349, they can make it 1.32 and lower the rate to try to balance that assessment value. Now, I'm sure the administration's trying to count on that money already, but we do have the ability to do that. It's never been done. But you hardly ever see a tax rate reduced, but it could be an option depending on, maybe I'm just.
Did I just hear you say you're going to reduce the real estate tax rate?
I said it's possible.
Is that what I heard? Is BRT prepared for a serious appeal process if half the city appeals?
I have no idea. We're going to ask those questions at a hearing, because, you know, normally they say it's 10% appeal, but there'll be a lot more if this is large. And maybe I'm just making this all up. Maybe they're going to massage these numbers and come in so it's not as high as I'm saying. I don't know, but I just, to me, being this late and not knowing what the numbers are, there's got to be a reason why we don't have the assessments. I guess because everybody was off for COVID. I don't know, but we didn't do them last year. You had 2 years to do the assessment. So I'm thinking maybe they came in real high and now they're fixing them before they give them to us. That's, you know, maybe that's the case, and maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
Okay, so great conversation today. Councilman, again, thank you very much for joining us. GPAR members, thanks for tuning in. Nice turnout. Thanks for the questions in the chat. And I think we need to find a cheerleader for the city of Philadelphia. You might be the person. You're very,
I'm ready.
you dress
Listen,
as Santa Claus every year, right?
yeah. But I listen, I do think we have great opportunity. I mean, I hear, and believe me, I hear all the negative things. I don't hear anything good, right? But I know that we have great opportunity here in the city, and I see a light. And I'm going to say, hopefully with the new administration coming in, you got to look at all these mayoral candidates. There's going to be 20 of them, however many people are running. Let's find out who's going to lead us in the best direction and support that person. So I think that'll change, and I think we'll have hopefully a leader that'll make some hard decisions on making people feel more safe in the city. And I think that's going to be the key to really seeing us grow.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning
Appreciate
in.
your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Take care. Have a great day. Thanks for having me.